As I mentioned earlier, we're now 2 years and 2 months in, or 2 years and 1 month into the lawsuit. SEC filed suit against us, saying that our sales of XRP represented sales of unregistered securities.
Unfortunately, none of the elements presented on this page are part of the registration process, which makes it near impossible to know, with or without an army of securities lawyers, what is or is not a security in the crypto universe, billionaire investor Mark Cuban said in a recent tweet. In the said tweet, Cuban shared an SEC webpage about the Howey test and tokens that often conflict with what the SEC has said publicly. It's worth a read to get more clarity on what may or may not be a security, he said. A few days back, Mark Cuban became one of the latest industry figures to call out the United States securities regulator for purportedly failing to provide cryptocurrency firms with a clear registration process. The Shark Tank investor claimed that no registration exists in the United States Securities and Exchange Commission's Framework for Investment Contract Analysis of Digital Assets document, making it near impossible to know what constitutes a security in the crypto universe. While a step-by-step outline isn't provided, the document does briefly explain what is required for firms under U.S. federal securities laws. Among the requirements included the need to disclose all information necessary for investors to make informed investment decisions and other essential managerial efforts that impact the success of the enterprise. Meanwhile, Cuban noted that other sectors in the finance industry are receiving much more transparency from the SEC. Rather than labeling stock loans as securities or suing brokers and banks, they're engaging in a comments process, Cuban explained. They should do the same thing with crypto as an effort to determine which aspects of crypto are securities and which are not, and the best way to regulate the industry and protect investors. I think their difference in approach is emblematic of their intent for one industry versus another, he added. That said, the billionaire and owner of the Dallas Mavericks is yet another individual who believes the SEC has not done enough to properly supervise the cryptocurrency sector and determine which tokens classify as securities and which as commodities. As you all know, the SEC is making all sorts of noise now, given how it appears to be attacking the crypto industry as of late. In fact, the agency's unfriendly attitude toward the industry intensified early this month, when it sued the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance, its CEO Changpeng Zhao, as well as the American subsidiary of the company, Binance US. The main accusation is that the platform operated unregistered national securities exchanges, broker-dealers, and clearing agencies. According to the regulator, Binance's unlicensed products include certain lending offerings, a staking program, the native token BNB, and a fiat-backed stablecoin BUSD. The SEC continued with its harsh actions with another lawsuit against Coinbase a day later. It alleged that the latter served as a broker, national securities exchange, and clearing agency without obtaining the necessary authorization. It also claimed that well-known cryptocurrencies such as Solana SOL, Cardano ADA, and Polygon Matic are securities, accusing Coinbase of offering trading services with them. Coinbase has elevated its interest in increasing its profits over investors' interest and over compliance with the law and the regulatory framework that governs the securities markets, the commission stated. However, Binance's CEO Changpeng Zhao and Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong remained unfazed by the accusations. In fact, Zhao tweeted his signature number, 4, urging his followers not to trust fake news or any sort of misleading information. Meanwhile, Armstrong said his exchange would be proud to represent the crypto sector in its SEC court battle, assuring, "We will get the job done." And we all know of the long-standing legal battle between Ripple and the SEC. In light of this, a few days after Mark Cuban lambasted the SEC, pro-XRP lawyer John Deaton called for Cuban to testify before the Senate and House Banking Financial Services Committees. In a recent tweet, Deaton said, "Can we get at M. Cuban before the Senate and House Banking Financial Services Committees, please?" Deaton apologized to Cuban for being presumptuous in offering up the billionaire investor's time. However, Deaton believes Cuban would be a suitable candidate to testify before the congressional committee as he better understands the interactions between regulation and innovation. It was noted and lauded by many when Cuban took to Twitter to defend the digital assets industry in response to the criticism of cryptocurrencies by former SEC official John Reed Stark. He also exposed alleged flaws in the conventional banking system. Cuban pointed out what he sees as an irony in Stark's criticism of groupthink among cryptocurrency users. According to him, groupthink is what saved depositors of Silicon Valley Bank and other institutions when oversight and regulation failed. And he wasn't done. The billionaire also exposed a controversial practice within the banking industry. He said that the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, and other regulators have been allowing banks to work around the FDIC's insurance limit of $250,000. Per Cuban, banks cross-deposit in FDIC-insured institutions to ensure that deposits of up to $1 million are fully insured. For context, this all started when Cuban accused SEC Chair Gary Gensler of harming cryptos via his stringent policies, and Stark was seen defending the regulator. This resulted in a heated debate between the two. During the debate, Cuban asserted that the crypto industry might experience a similar fate as the early days of the internet, where 99% of early internet firms went bankrupt. According to Cuban, 90% of blockchain-related companies are destined for bankruptcy, while 99% of crypto assets will go broke. Cuban noted that the way tech works is that the winners are always the game changers. Let's take this back to the SEC. They aren't supposed to make judgment calls on whether a technology is valid or investors need protections based on their view of technology, said Cuban. Furthermore, Cuban called on Congress to intervene in order to foster the industry's growth. Following his interaction, Deaton called for Mark Cuban to testify before the Senate and House Banking Financial Services Committees as someone who actually understands the interaction between regulation and innovation. Besides Cuban and Deaton, U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis has also lashed out at the regulator for failing to provide a robust legal framework, or at least offer legal guidance in some form for firms to comply with. However, at the Global Exchange and FinTech Conference held early this month, SEC Chair Gary Gensler claimed that a registration process exists and that firms know how to register. His comments were made in relation to Coinbase and Robinhood's recent claims that they tried to register but the SEC rejected the attempt. Last month, Mark Cuban shared a proposal on how cryptocurrency tokens should be decentralized in the future to avoid being on the receiving end of SEC enforcement actions. This was prompted by an SEC move that asked Grayscale to pull its application to make its Filecoin Trust product more akin to a public company, warning that its underlying asset, Filecoin FIL, meets the definition of a security. Mark Cuban commented on a tweet regarding Filecoin being labeled as a security by the SEC and shared some tips on how future crypto-focused firms could become completely decentralized to avoid facing lawsuits from the U.S. regulator for securities violations. He noted that cryptocurrency issuing companies should consider releasing all their supply without retaining a portion as a treasury. According to Cuban, the released tokens should be used to provide liquidity using DeFi, and the original entity that issued the tokens should thereafter be dissolved. In his view, rogue regulators like the SEC will not be able to close the token down, alleging it's a security, as it has done with cryptocurrencies like FIL and XRP, as there will be true decentralization. John Deaton, the legal representative of XRP holders, concurred with Mark Cuban's suggestion. Deaton posited that it is smart and probably in someone's playbook at the moment. However, the crypto law founder emphasized that the crypto community must continue pushing against the false narrative propagated by the SEC, that the underlying asset in an investment contract is a security. So, what happens to XRP now? Although Ripple has historically maintained a distance from XRP, any progress in the long-standing lawsuit has had an impact on the token's prices. Most recently, market watchers spotted a peculiar behavior in XRP's price. After the news of the Hinman documents release went live, the Ripple-affiliated token saw a swift spike in its price that was followed by an increase in selling volume, which countered the price rise. The sudden selling pressure suggests that someone or some people were ready for this price pump and that there are entities who are working to manipulate the XRP price, presumably for their own benefit. As the summary judgment news on XRP looms, a similar situation may occur. The good news is such price behavior might have a silver lining. In the event that suppression efforts fall short of counteracting the demand sparked by favorable regulatory news, XRP prices may sharply increase. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for more of this content.